We are about to move in to Chodesh Elul Haba Leilin L'Toiva. So I'm waiting about the Heiligen Belzeruf. There's a posik that Lavan said to Yaakov Avini, Yesh lekeil yodi lasa es mochim ra. Lavan said to Yaakov, ich kenne die tien schlecht. When Lavan met Yaakov, he was chasing him. V'lekai avichem emesh umar alai. Hishomar lecho medabre b'Yaakov toivim ra. Last night, the Rabbi Shalom came to me in a dream and warned me I shouldn't shepherd you, Yaakov. So the Heilige Belzeruf, Emesh is Rosh Tevis, Shabbos Mevorach in Elul. Shabbos Mevorach in Elul. As Yidden kommen sich zusammen, als scheine Shabbos Mevorach in Elul, kann Lovan und Arami nicht in kann schlecht für Klal Yisroel. After having such an inspiring Shabbos, such an uplifting Shabbos with just beautiful droshes, beautiful speakers, and the men, by the ladies, jeder ne Kinder gewinnen so stark. Können wir sagen, als der Rebbeinu Shalom kiegt auf uns, and the Yitzhahara, Lovan Arami, can do no harm to Klal Yisroel and Alachas Kama V'Kama to this Choshev Etzibah. But we want to go away from the Shabbos, and it says, Neure in Aruas, the combination that we have the Shabbos with the two-star speakers from the Welt, make it sagen, we had Rabbi Meisler in Tzoma Gehad, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Jacobson Shalita, one of the world speakers. It is my covenant honor to call up Rabbi Jacobson to give us tools, to give us ammunition, how to go home in Yetz Hashem, and how to prava Chodesh Elul, how to be mispalel for a Gid gebencht Yur. It's my honor to call up Rabbi Jacobson Shlita. There was a bar mitzvah bacher who wanted to give a große drasha, a große pshetel. So he comes to his mother, he says, Mama, I want to talk about Yichus, where we come from. She says, the Baba, Gewalt, the Zayde, the Elte Baba, she goes, no, Mama, all the way back. Where did it begin? He says, where it began? On Friday, he created Adam and Chava. They decided to have children. The rest is history, or actually her story. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and here we are. Gewaldig. Comes to his father. His father was a graduate from a distinguished university. He considered himself a masculine, enlightened person. Says, Tati, where do we come from? Tells him about the lineage, the yichus. No. All the way in the beginning. He says, all the way in the beginning, we have come from apes. Explains to him the yesodus of Darwinism, the shittas ha'istachus, evolutia, this philosophy of evolution. After hundreds of millions of years, apes evolved into Homo sapiens, into people. That's how it worked. Where did the apes come from? Came from monkeys. Where did the monkeys evolve from? Other primates. Tati, how did it all begin? It all began with an explosion of gas and bacteria. Comes back to the mama, says, Mama, I'm confused about the bar mitzvah drush. She says, what? So I want to talk about Yichus, where we come from. You tell me. From Yitzchak Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Udam, Chava, Rebbeinu Shalom. Daddy tells me, we come from apes, we come from monkeys, we come from bacteria. Was sag ich bei der Drasche? What do I say? She looks at him and she says, my taya kind, there's no contradiction here. Your father was talking about his side of the family.
side of the mishpacha. There's mamish no stira. Eile divrei Elokim chayim. Why do I say this? You know, Tayyid Yidin, I'm going to try to speak to both sides of the family here. Yomin usmal tefreutz. Was a Yid, Chassidish Yid, came from Poland to the United States. He wanted to become a citizen, an Ezrach from America. One problem, we just heard from Ibn Naftali, that he didn't know Yiddish, he didn't know English. You become a citizen, they ask you questions about America, history. You have to know some things. He didn't know English. How do you become a citizen? So his Chava told him, I'm going to set you up for an interview with an old man who makes people citizens. And he always asks 5 questions. Already 50 years, he asks 5 questions. You don't have to understand English. You just have to memorize 5 chivas, 5 responses. You become a citizen. Gewaldig. What are his 5 questions? He always meets the people. He says, I have 5 questions. The first question is always, what's your name? You don't have to understand English. He says, what's your name? You hear? You say, Moshe Weiss. Question number 2. He's always going to ask, how many children do you have? You'll say 5. He's going to ask the 3rd question, how many states in the U.S.? You'll say 50. His 4th question is, who was the first president of America? You'll say George Washington. 5th question, do you have parents? You'll say, thank God both. For 3 months, this Chassidish Yid is memorizing, like Mishnay's Baal Peh, these 5 answers verbatim, mila b'mila. Moshe Weiss, 5 children, 50 states, George Washington. The Grace day comes, he walks in for the interview. The old man looks at him and he says, you want to become a citizen of the U.S.? Makes like this. I have 5 questions. Great, nods. Question number 1. Tell me, what was the name of the first president of the United States of America? Without skipping a heart's beat, mibli lachsid doifek, he says, Moshe Weiss. Tell me, how many states are there in America? He says, 5. He says, tell me, how many children do you have? He says, 50. He looks at this Yid. The Yid mit a Streimel, mit a Beckisch, ein Gepeies, a Bachsidische Yid. Put on a Streimel in honor of the day. Looks at this Yid and he says, what's your name? He says, George Washington. The old man sitting on the other side of the desk was an Alte Yid. So he immediately understood what's going on. He looks at him and he says, Sag mich, wer mich da, mir oder dir? Who's crazy in this room, you or me? And he says, thank God both. Why do I tell you this anecdote? I'll tell you why. You could memorize lines and say all the right things. At some point, you're going to get stuck. There's rabbis, there's speakers, there's rabbunim, there's rosh yeshivas, there's lecturers, there's balei darshunim, who have all their lines memorized. Was mezak, ven, was, mishnai, take off their glasses, Kol d'momadaka, kol rash gadol, tkiya, shvarim, trua, tkiya, mevayt, malach, mishpring, takofis. At some point, if you're just memorizing lines, you're going to get stuck with real things. There was once a Yid, a schnorrer. You know what a schnorrer is, eh? Guy who has a PhD in fundraising. Große schnorrer. A Kapzen, ben benoishal Kapzen. Already shamed the son of Noach was Goizi, you should be a Kapzen. One of those. You know, goes in the family as hundreds of dollars. But he would always buy the lottery. You know, chevra that buy the lottery every day. They put on film, they buy the lottery. He'd buy the lottery. 45 years he bought the lottery. Vahia Yoim was $263 million lottery. His wife gets a call. Is this the house of XYZ? She says, yeah. You won? Your husband won? 263 million. She calls the Ruv and she says, I have a serious situation. I know my husband, Chaim Yankel. He's going to hear that he won the lottery. He's going to drop dead on the spot. He's going to collapse with a heart attack. I don't know if he's going to survive. I don't know. Was tue ich? The Ruv says, you send him to me. Als de brengt je nek, als de gaan vullen de kap euch. Dat is keine geuch. I think. She says, he tells her, tell your husband he should come to see the Ruv before he comes home. She calls up Brother Chaim Yankel. The Ruv will the gezin, I did the kimstein. The Ruv wants to see him. Comes into the Ruv, Rebbe, was tut sich? The Rebbe says, I'm just here to ask you, was tut sich in Panossa, thank you. How's your Panossa? He says, Rebbe, you know I'm a captain, Benoishal captain, Ben Benoishal captain, sind Cham Ben Noyach. Good, sure, positive. The Ruv says, so yush. What do you do if Kaili Shtadlis to make money? I buy the lottery, but the device to sell it son is I never win the lottery. He says, how do you know? How do you know? Goyim in Montana win the lottery. In Kentucky, in Delaware. A Heimish Yid V'yich is not winning $263 million. He says, are you pulling Hashem Dover? Somebody has to win, maybe it's you. Says Rebbe Sacholim Shecholmu Achayrim Al Achayrim Be'ez Chaloimus Shal Achayrim. It's not happening. I don't win lotteries. I buy it L'Shem Yichud. I don't win a lottery. How do you know? Let's say today you did win the lottery. Gives a look and says, Rebbe, if I won the lottery, I give the Ruv half. He collapsed on the floor. He had a heart attack. It's easy to be a spectator on the outside. You give people advice. On the inside, everything changes. So I say to you that the truth is now, after being a whole Shabbos here, Baruch Hashem, I feel like Me'ein Moshe Rabbeinu in front of the sneh, in front of the burning bush. What happened? He wants to see the burning bush. Hashem tells him, take off your shoes because you're standing on holy soil. What happened? It says in Medrash Rabbah, the burning bush represented the pain of the Jewish people throughout history. Moshe Rabbeinu, the first Manig Yisrael, observed his children, his people, Am Hashem, Hasne boye ba'esh v'hasne nenuko. They won't be destroyed, but they're going to hurt. And Moshe naturally says, Asura nove'ere. Let me look, let me understand, let me verstehen, let me analyze. Madua lo iver asneh. How does it work? Shem turns to him and says, Moshe Rabbeinu, one day you're going to become a Rebbe. The first thing when you're standing in front of a sneh, you know what you do? Shalni alecha me'araglecha. Nemar up the shich, take off your shoes from your feet. Ki amokim ashata oim the love atmas kodesh. Because when you're standing in the presence of a person in pain, you're standing in Kodesh HaKadoshim. And in Kodesh HaKadoshim, you take off your shoes. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're not a philosopher. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're not a theologian. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're not a mumche. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're not an explainer. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, you take off your shoes, and with humility, you recognize ki amokim ashata oimedalov admas kodesh. You all know how true it is what I'm going to say now. That a person who has been tested with tremendous pain in his or her life stands in a different plateau, in a different place, in a different universe, in a different madrega than people who were not tested that So I say to you today, as I'm going to share what I want to share with you, Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, the first thing I'm doing is I'm taking off my shoes off my feet. Ki hamoker ma sha'ata omed olav admas kodesh. And I share with you 4 points as this Shabbos Kodesh shares its goodbye with us. Point number 1, individuality. Point number 2, living with the now and thriving in the now. Point number 3, harmony in the home, shalom bayis. Point number 4, discovering my purpose. Point number 1, individuality. I'm going to speak now like a brother to brothers and like a brother to sisters. I'm going to speak leiv l'leiv, heart to heart, from somebody who sometimes sees the other side. I think the best way to illustrate what I want to say is a scientific experiment I once read about. There was a French scientist, a French naturalist. His name was Henry Farber. He won the Nobel Prize in the early 1900s. He was a big expert on insects. Especially, he did research on caterpillars. Wie sagt man caterpillar auf Yiddish? Caterpillar. Auf Lashon Kodesh, zachal. Right? A zachal. MS? Zachal, a caterpillar, right? You familiar with caterpillars? Those of you who went to camp and hated sports, and you ran away to the forest, and you went to catch frogs and salamandras, and every worm you caught, you thought you mamish found kesef azov, and probably in your search for your frogs, you discovered caterpillars. Those little creatures that crawl around. Arkam meruba arachbam. And the seder with caterpillars is they walk in processions. A procession is a talucha, a parad. You can have 300 caterpillars. Head to toe, head to toe, head to toe, mamash attached like a choo-choo train. With the leader in the front looking for food. And hundreds will follow in mamash dovok attached. Henry Farber was a curious guy. And he wanted to see how deep is this gene, that nature that Hashem put into the caterpillar. You know what he did? I'm going to show you what he did. Henry Farber took a flower pot on otzitz, and he overturned the flower pot azoi. He took a group of the caterpillars, and he put them on the rim of the flower pot, on the edge of the flower pot. The chiddush is they're in a circle now. They're doing hakofas. There's no leader because they're going in a circle. There's nobody directing them. They're following each other. So everyone is following the other one, who's following the other one, who's following the other one. There's nobody in the front. Now he takes food and he puts it in the middle of the flower pot, the middle. And he waits to see which caterpillar is going to tear itself away from the circle to go get its food to live. And you know what he observed? He watched the caterpillars for 7 days. And here is the facts of the experiment that I read. After 7 days, he watched every single last caterpillar die from hunger, starvation, dehydration, thirst, and exhaustion. The food was a few inches away, but the need to be part of the circle was stronger than the search to go get the food that's going to let you live. As long as I'm going to stay in the circle. Many of us live our whole lives like that. We know that our food is somewhere else. We know that we need to go there for our food. But the emotional pressure to be in the circle becomes so powerful that we sometimes sacrifice what we need most for our neshama and our guf as long as we're part of the circle. Every person in their own life, but everyone sitting here in this room, in their life, needs to appreciate what they're going through and respect your boundaries and not force yourself to always be in the circle of everybody else. Because you're on a different journey than many other people. And you have to respect that. How many told me? It's true with the Ezra's Anoshim and so much more true with the Ezra's Noshim. The levels of guilt and regret. It's not a pasha to think when somebody's brother has 41 Einiklach and is going to Chasanas every other night. And his own mishpacha comes and there's such a mixture of simcha and atzvus, of kina and happiness, and you blame yourself and you get upset at yourself. Why am I not a good Jew? Where's my Avos Yisrael? We sometimes don't have boundaries. You're not in everybody's circle. Respect that. You have to know what you need. You need to know what works for you. You have to know what doesn't work for you. Some places don't go. Create your gvulas. Some conversations you don't have to be part of. People, the pressure to be in everybody's circle and everybody's akafah, sometimes they come home. So brachen, so shtoy is depressed. You have to know when yeah, when not. You have to respect your boundary. Let me tell you something. A lot of people mean well, they don't get it. They don't get it. You're going out with your friends. You're drinking coffee. You're eating a little sushi. They start talking about a conversation. For them, it's natural. They don't understand. They don't mean bad. But they're insensitive. You have to know that. You have to be aware who you are, who you're not. People sometimes say things. At the panel, somebody started to talk about all the zgulas that people give him. Every Monday and Thursday, somebody finds a zgula. My Talmidim once asked me, Rabbi Jacobson, maybe you saw P'sin Kisvei Arizal and Zoya, P'sin zgula for Parnasa. I told him, yeah, I found one. Get a job. I found it. They say, who steigt Zoya Kisvei Ari with Tanya V? I said, that pasuk somewhere, it's a book by Rachach Hashem Alekacha B'choil HaShetasa. I saw a pasuk on Shaishas Yomim Tavid, sagt the Mechilte Zu Mitzvahs Asay. It was a Yid on 13th Avenue. It's the Chashnari, he's begging this. So a Yid is going to, dressed up, Shane, a suitcase, mamish, gewaldig. Schnarr looks at him, stuck, ach, mas es kala. So he's a chabenisht. Schnarr says, go get a job. He says, I work for a living, you work for a living. One of the women who's here, Shabbos, tells me a ma'isa last night. Mamish last night. Isha Tzidkana, she tells me. Just there was a Yid, he had a big farm. But 100 chickens died. Comes running to the Rebbe that he had. Says, Rebbe, 100 chickens died. The Rebbe says, go, take cholent. But it has to be cholent shemes bashal be'erev Shabbos achachatzois. That was sold near the mikveh. And make sure there's kishke in it, beans, potato, and psar keves. And you feed it to all the other chickens. So it's giller. He saw the psar giller. He goes, he gets the mikveh, cholent. The cholent was already in the mikveh. It has the tam, it has the reach out. I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Cholent, was mir rift bei uns in der Heim, Toya Mel. He gives it to the chickens. Wakes up the next day, another 100 chickens. He's gadal wie is gadal. Kommt der Läufer zum Rebbe, noch ein, down the drain. Ich darf as gillen the other ones. Go to the Kaisel. days, 40 nights daven. And then come and give them 7-layer cake. Mehu uge, shenechel b'shalosh shudas, in chutzer abayni. You give it to the chickens. He gives the 7-layer cake, wakes up in the morning, another 100 chickens dead. Comes running to the Rebbe, I'm going to lose my whole panosa. Already 300 chickens. The Rebbe looks at him and he says, listen, ich hab a sach skillas, the shailas wiffel chickens. What was her point? Her point was not chas v'shalom, to question or delegitimize different things that people embrace. Nobody knows how Yeshua's Hashem happens. The point is that it's easy for a person who doesn't understand the pain to tell people what to do, what not to do, what to say, go here, do this. It says in Svurim here, it says in Svurim here. But you have to have boundaries of self-respect. You have to know when you're in the circle, and you have to know when it's time to say, I'm not part of the circle, and I'm fine with not being part of the circle. There's no need to give a person themselves extra yisurim from the pressure, from the emotional lachatz, from the social anxiety. Yes, a chasana of a nephew is going to be very difficult. Bist a mensch, bist nicht a malach. You're not a malach. It's going to be mu'urev, oive, choshech, mishtamshen, be'evuvia. In the most beautiful moments, there could be very simple feelings of a human being. It doesn't make you an evil person. It makes you a mensch. We don't control every emotion. We control what we do with the emotion. You're not taking a gun and killing anybody. You're feeling a difficult anxiety. You have to know your boundaries and respect it. Because I did not choose my circle. And I have to know where my food is. My gashmi is the food. My ruchni is the food. Point number 2. Living with the now and thriving in the moment. One of the issues that most people have, especially Yidden, kol shekei v'kal v'chayim, people who are on a difficult journey in life, is we're always waiting for the great day. I ask a Yid, when are you going to have Shalom Bayis? But we're both in different Moshev Skena.